Where do we come from? That's often the first question a child asks, and has bedeviled scientists for centuries. Well, as we reported last April, we're a little bit closer to answering that, after it was announced with great fanfare that the remains of a 9-year-old boy were found in South Africa. He is almost 2 million years old. He's been called sediba, which means source, and he stands somewhere on the road between ape and human. He lived in a period when our ancestors climbed down from the trees and started living on the ground. He belongs to a previously unidentified species, and anthropologists will be studying him for decades. Before the announcement, we were given rare access to the discovery, which could be among the most important of our time. His unveiling was a major happening when he appeared at a press conference in Johannesburg.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is a new species of human ancestor.
Professor Lee Berger, an American paleoanthropologist at Wits University, named him Australopithecus sediba. And the most astonishing thing about him is his skull, 1.9 million years old, so well preserved that you can count his teeth, so very much like ours. Where did sediba live? In these hills just 50 minutes from Johannesburg, in what's called the cradle of humankind. After all, we humans came from Africa. And scientists here have spent the better part of a century looking for fragments of our earliest ancestors.
There's probably nowhere else on planet Earth that has a denser, better record of human origins than this land right here.
Yet Berger had been searching for fossils in caves here for years and hadn't found much of anything.
And this is typical of caves in this whole area.
So he started a mapping project using a very modern tool, Google Earth. He discovered some 500 caves in the region which no scientists had ever explored.
And then I started walking, and I walked a lot, hundreds of kilometers.
Berger was walking through the Malapa Nature Reserve with his trusted dog Tau, his 9-year-old son Matthew, and his colleague Job Kibbe. And you came up with Matthew and Job.
That's right.
Sounds like a biblical expedition.
It does, doesn't it?
They came across a cave, and that was the beginning of an astonishing series of events.
I literally said, you know, here's the site. There are bones here. Let's look around. Matthew got up, ran over in that direction. A minute and a half later, he called me.
Matthew found something which he knew would excite his father.
Here's a rock that looks about the same size, and when I turned it over, there was a fossil.
I looked at that fossil in that rock and knew exactly what he found.
He had found a clavicle, a collarbone. How significant was that?
That collarbone, that clavicle alone would have been a great find. It would have been enough for me, certainly. I mean, most people who do what I do, do what Job do, go through their entire careers and never find even a single piece. I'd found a few dozen fragments, and I mean fragments before this.
It gets even better. On the other side of the rock, there was a jawbone and a tooth, a canine.
That was amazing. We would turn to the clavicle, we high-five. We turn to the canine, we high-five. Because we knew that we have hit a jackpot.
You hit the jackpot?
Yeah.
Hitting the jackpot without even digging. Why was it so easy? 100 years ago, miners blasted these caves, scattering rocks and unearthing fossils. Fossils including a skull. You found it?
Right here. It was lying on its side, sticking out of the wall in this area. Its body's, in fact, all the way up there. Its foot is still in the rock just up at the top there.
Berger sent the rocks to his lab at the University of Witwatersrand, where workers began painstakingly extracting the fossils. The dating of the rocks showed that they were around 1.9 million years old. Analysis of the bones revealed that what the scientists had in their hands was not one skeleton, but two, a 9-year-old boy and a 30-year-old woman.
I think it really is a most remarkable set of finds, and particularly the quality. I don't think we've found anything like this before.
When Richard Leakey, the world's most renowned paleoanthropologist, examined the bones, he said they were almost too much to digest.
It was a wow experience. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there, and it's spectacular. It is so full of information and so much data that I had to say to him after an hour, I said, Lee, I've had enough.
Lee is still finding bones in that cave. Has he struck a gold mine?
Yes, he's got a treasure trove. No question, a treasure trove.
See, it strikes me there's a...
Back at the site, Berger and a team of geologists were trying to figure out exactly what had happened 1.9 million years ago.
Is it just like a...
What had these creatures been doing? Berger's best guess? They were searching for water and accidentally fell into this cave.
This is a single event. This is not something that happened over years or decades or hundreds of years, which is often the case with other fossil sites. This is a moment in time. It happened in seconds, minutes, days, or weeks.
How do you know that?
Because it's one single unit of geology. Everything is together and everything is articulated. So that, almost for the first time in history, we can tell you that these two individuals looked each other in the eyes when they were alive 1.9 million years ago.
A glance frozen in a fossil? Berger thinks so, but he's been accused in the past of letting his imagination roam a little too freely. Nonetheless, he says, it's probable that these two creatures were related.
They are just primates like we're just primates. Primates live in troops, and these troops are very often related to each other. So there's a very good chance.
Could they speak to each other?
I don't know whether they could speak to each other, but maybe we'll know one day.
Did they have tools they could use together?
Given what we're seeing in their shape and form, there's no real reason to suggest that they might not be capable of manufacturing complex stone tools.
Fire?
My guess, probably not.
But whatever they could or could not do, they are some of the rarest objects on Earth. Their value? Priceless. For Berger, the thrill is putting the bones, the jigsaw puzzle, back together.
It's like reconstructing her life.
And young Sediba? His relatively long legs tell us that he could walk and run on 2 feet. His long arms and powerful hands suggest that he also felt at home in trees. And what about his skull? Well, I get very nervous to see it coming out of the box.
Isn't it extraordinary? There's a face from 1.9 million years ago.
How old is Moses?
A few thousand years. Nothing compared to this. A few seconds in the relation to the time this has been around. It's almost a work of art, isn't it?
But how do you compare this work of art to something more contemporary? You told me before that this chap is 40 years old. And this chap is almost 2 million years old.
That's right.
How do you compare them?
You can see that little Sediba has a nose here. The face is very similar in shape. And even surprisingly, the teeth are almost the same size.
Sediba's brain is smaller than ours, but larger than an ape's. Berger calls him a hybrid, a strange mixture, an entirely new species. What is special about this species?
Well, this one doesn't just fall in that big picture between the apes and us, if you will. This is falling at a critical moment where we almost had no evidence. And I really do mean that. Literally just a few fragments. That period between where we turned from effectively an ape man to something that is very, very close to us.
Do you think it'll take a while before Berger's discovery and interpretations become universally accepted?
No doubt. No doubt.
When Donald Johanson discovered Lucy, the most famous fossil ever found, it took years before his views were accepted. Why do you think this whole area is so contentious?
We have an emotional commitment. People are studying the origins of all humankind, and everybody who finds fossils, finds a human fossil like this, becomes emotionally involved with them. We want our fossil to be on the tree. We want our fossil to be an ancestor to all humanity. And I think that's something that colors our thinking.
Today, to examine and re-examine his own thinking, Berger is using the most up-to-the-minute science to study these most ancient of creatures. He recently took Sediba on a trip to Grenoble, France, to one of the world's most sophisticated X-ray systems called a synchrotron. Just a few years ago, you would have had to destroy the rocks surrounding Sediba to get a good look at him. That's not necessary now, since the scanner sees right through the rock. It can fill a screen with something 1/100th the size of a human hair.
It's going to peer into him, and it's going to tell us what treasures sit inside of him that we can't even imagine. I mean, we've really never been able to look at this level inside of something in our ancestral lineage that's as complete as this. And
The teeth look remarkable.
They are. They look like yours or mine.
I wish. Could he smile?
Oh, yeah.
Scans of Sediba's teeth will tell scientists not only what he ate, but where he ate it, on the ground or in a tree, and to a day how old he was when he died. 60 scientists are already working on these questions. It's sort of a CSI for fossils.
This is like a time machine. I mean, we are going to go back and look at their world. It is an adventure that we're right at the front pages of, and it's kind of like reading the greatest novel ever written, the human story. It's an incredible adventure that we're going to see the end to.
And it all began with a 9-year-old boy discovering another 9-year-old boy. You couldn't make that up. Since we first broadcast this story, Professor Berger and his team have uncovered fossils of 3 more individuals, one of them an infant.